to do is think of something and it will be done.
Hi, it's Kate here at Marvelous Videos, and today we look at 10 powerful and terrifying Static Shock villains. When Static Shock, the popular DCAU series, premiered in the year 2000, it was immediately a massive hit with the audience. The storyline was way ahead of its time, but the fans still appreciated the depth in the narrative and the characters. The makers had to make some changes from the comic books because the series was intended to cater to a pre-teen audience. However, the plot was never compromised and we witnessed some enthralling battles between good and evil. The protagonist was none other than the young teenage hero Virgil. He was exposed to an experimental gas along with many others, and he gained certain superpowers as did the others exposed to the gas. Virgil could create, absorb, generate, and control both electricity and magnetism. He used these powers to become a superhero and took up the alter ego of Static. But not all who were exposed to the gas used their powers for good. Some of them were mean and complex and turned out to be notorious supervillains, misusing their abilities. In this video, we will take a note of some of the meanest villains that Static had to deal with. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin.
Ebon! How would you two saps like a one-way trip to the core of this nuclear reactor?
Ebon. Ebon and Hotstreak were two of the main villains in this animated series, and the former also went by the name Ivan Evans. He was the ruthless leader of the Metabreed, and his origin story is quite an interesting one. Even before he became a dreaded villain, he was dealing with numerous issues in his life. He had to step in as the one responsible for his family after his father died. His troubled childhood meant that he was sent to a juvenile hall, and even there he was in charge of the other inmates. He showed signs of his leadership skills quite early on, and many of these inmates would later become bang babies, a term used to denote those infected by the gas. After being exposed to the gas, he was transformed into a living shadow. He took up the name Ebon and created his own gang of metahumans. His intentions were quite clear: take control of Dakota. Ebon also tried to get Static by his side, but the latter refused. In fact, Static helped one of Ebon's recruits to find the right way of life, and this further enraged Ebon. He had numerous showdowns with Static, and many of them proved to be very difficult moments for the superhero. Once, Ebon kidnapped Static's friend Richie and wanted to use him as a hostage to free Talon, one of the members of his gang. The plan did not work out, and later he even kidnapped Virgil, guessing rightly that he and Static might be the same person. Luckily, Richie used his super intelligence to mislead Ebon into thinking that he got the wrong person. Ebon had many other sinister plans, such as sending the heroes back in time to blocking out the sun so that darkness could rule over Earth. Ebon's main power was to control shadows at will, and he was a living shadow himself. He had the ability to slide through walls and small cracks, and he could teleport himself among other powers. He also had shape-shifting abilities and could make himself appear any way he wanted. However, Ebon had two major weaknesses. He was susceptible to intense light, and it weakened him considerably. He could also be harmed just like any other normal person, although he could recover very quickly. He was one of the most recurring villains in the series, and he certainly deserved his presence.
It's wrong! It's all wrong!
Hotstreak. What happens when a person who is already hot-headed and mean acquires superpowers? A mean and powerful villain like Hotstreak. He went by the name Francis Stone, and after his exposure to the gas, he gained some remarkable powers. He could create and control blasts of fire, and his ability to manipulate fire made him extremely dangerous. His temper flared even more, and he could also absorb fire into his body. He also had the ability to fly short distances and travel in powerful leaps using the fire bursts. Hotstreak had a rather curious appearance, and he was dressed in a red short-sleeve shirt that was tucked into his pants. He wore olive green pants with a strange green belt, and his short red-orange hair with yellow streaks is remarkably catchy. As you would expect, his primary weakness was water. He could be extinguished using gushes of water or fire extinguishers. He was one of the first major opponents that Static had to deal with, and it was an extremely challenging task. He was Static's enemy even before the exposure. Francis Stone was a bully gang leader, and he had targeted Virgil for his mini involvement with a rival gang. After his exposure, he became meaner, and the most dangerous thing about him was his unpredictable nature. He disregarded everything and did whatever he felt would suit his fiery personality. Later, Dr. Todd had developed a bang baby cure, and this was transforming those infected back to humans. However, Ebon had other plans and wanted to use the last vial of the gas to ensure that more people were exposed to the gas and could be added to his gang. Initially, Hotstreak teamed up with Ebon, but Hotstreak also wanted the last vial for himself, and the two broke out in an intense fight. It was shadows and fire all over the docks, and the two merged into a giant bang baby. Eventually, Static and Gear managed to subdue them, and two of the most powerful villains were finally defeated. Joker. Joker needs no introduction. Every DC fan has admired and feared this charismatic villain. His introduction in the Static Shock show was a masterstroke, and the episode titled The Big Leagues was one of the best in the entire series. It begins with Static chasing Ferret, but just as he is about to get him, both are knocked unconscious. When Ferret wakes up, he discovers that Joker is headed to Dakota after his accomplices were arrested by Batman and Robin. He teamed up with the likes of Talon, Hotstreak, and Kangor, which became his new gang. Joker wanted Ferret to be a part of his gang, but he refused, and Joker sprayed him with his infamous laughing gas. The new gang, led by Joker, headed off to a fire station and stole the fire trucks for a mighty heist in Dakota First Bank. Static failed to stop them, but he did find Ferret in one of the trucks, still laughing maniacally from the impact of the gas. Batman and Robin joined Static, and he learned about Joker being in Dakota. They started to look for him, completely unaware that Joker was already aware of their presence in the city. Talon was used by Joker to lure the heroes into his trap. The moment they entered a tunnel in the industrial district, the heroes are knocked unconscious and taken prisoner. Static tried to chase the baddies, but Kangor and Hotstreak ensured that the tunnel collapsed over him. However, he did find his way out of the rubble and used the Batwing to track down Batman and Robin. Joker was preparing to use his new weapon, a modified fire truck ladder that could be used as a catapult to shoot spiked steel balls at the chained heroes. Static managed to stop this evil plan just in time, and the heroic duo was saved. Eventually, Joker's entire gang is taken down, and he is the last one left standing. As a last-ditch effort, he tried to run Batman over using the truck, but it didn't work out. Static knocked him out, and Joker was finally arrested. Static wished that he would meet the dynamic duo of Batman and Robin again. This version of Joker was just as mean as we know him to be, and it was a treat to watch Static team up with Batman and Robin to bring him down.
I can't ignite! No, but I can.
Leech. The name of this villain is kind of a giveaway as to what his powers are. Leech can drain out the powers from the other Bang Babies and add them to his own. Thus, in a way, he had the potential to be the most powerful among them all. However, there is a small catch to his remarkable abilities. The powers start to wane out after a while, and Leech would have to suck the powers in once again from the host. He knew that if he managed to absorb the power of every metahuman, he would be unstoppable.
Because I can suck the powers out of other metahumans. And once I collect all you Bang Babies,
He set about his mission and captured Ebon first. Then, he used the powers of Ebon to capture Talon and Hotstreak. They were kept imprisoned in cells because Leech would require their powers a lot more. He even had plans to suck the powers out of Static, but he made a silly error while trying to accomplish his mission. Lil Romeo, who was in a Static costume for a video clip, was mistakenly captured by Leech, and when Ebon and Hotstreak got to know about this goof-up, they ridiculed him. Leech had other plans to use Romeo and put him in an unstable roller coaster, challenging Static to save the day. Static did stop the coaster, but Leech got him with a sudden attack. He quickly drained Static's powers and kept him imprisoned in a cell just like the others. He defeated Gear in no time, and eventually it was up to Romeo, Daisy, and Frida to find his hideout. They freed all of his victims, but Static's enemies betrayed him once again. He was left to fend for himself and Lil Romeo. Although Leech drained Static of his powers once again, Lil Romeo proved to be a useful ally and turned on the sprinkler system. It short-circuited him, and finally he was arrested by the police.
You ruined it! Again!
Rubberband Man. He did start off as a villain, but eventually he turned into a good guy and used his powers wisely.
We're gonna put Rubberband Man in a safer prison. If his behavior's good, he'll be out making music again in a matter of months.
His real name was Adam Evans, and he took to the name of Rubberband Man following the events of the chemical exposure. A record producer had plagiarized his music, and Adam was keen to get his revenge after he gained his new powers. He was made up of rubber, and thus he could easily change his body to any shape. His powers were somewhat similar to the likes of Plastic Man and Elongated Man in this regard, For the time when he remained an opponent for Static, the latter had a tough time. This is because Static's electrical powers would usually have no effect on Rubberband Man. His shape-shifting abilities were simply stunning, and he could even change his colours accordingly. When he went to get his revenge, he found out that a rapper named Ice Pack was using his music to deliver his hit single. Static tried to stop Rubberband Man, but he was no more than a nuisance for this bendy villain. However, he was arrested and imprisoned for his actions. He soon escaped from the prison, but he tried to follow his musical career, which was his true ambition. Under the alias Stringer, he concentrated on his music and also dated Sharon, Virgil's sister. His cover was soon blown by Virgil, and all this started to have an impact on him. He turned himself in and decided to do his bit for society in the times to come. This time around, his good behaviour in prison earned him an early release. He came out a reformed person. He used his superpowers for good. His brother Ebon did have a sinister plan and framed Adam, forcing him to join his gang. But Static soon deciphered his intentions, and Adam could clear his name and work as his ally. Although Rubberband Man did have some incredibly unique powers, he was sometimes hounded by his dyslexia, and it became a problem in difficult missions. Overall, this anti-hero was quite a colourful character and one that grew in the course of time.
It's coming from him! He's a bang baby! Ah!
Slipstream. Slipstream might have had few appearances in the show, but he was quite a powerful enemy that Static had to deal with. His real name was Heavy C, and he was an overweight bully who was known for his selfish ways. Even before he acquired his powers, he would take food and drinks from the customers at a burger joint, and finally a few teens stood up to his antics. This is when he discovered that he had some special powers, and he was one of the bang babies. His special ability was to control wind, and as a greedy, evil fellow, he used it for selfish purposes. He made himself a costume that consisted of his blue cap, white shirt, and light blue stretch pants. He also wore a pair of goggles and armour on his torso and shoulders. When he appears in the series finale, he is shown to be so overweight that he can barely fit into his costume anymore. While Slipstream continued in his evil ways, he had a face-off against Static at the water park. Static was distracted by Richie during their fight, and this helped Slipstream to take an upper hand. Due to their increasing differences, Static and Richie broke off their alliance, and this allowed Slipstream to use his powers freely and steal food from random restaurants. He even robbed a bank and attacked the Dakota History Museum. Static stepped in to stop him, but he short-circuited him using water. When Richie came in to help, even he was defeated easily, and was left with his left arm broken. But this did help Richie and Static to repair their bond, and Static used the zap caps that Richie had brought to recharge himself. Eventually, Slipstream was wrapped in the metal roof of the park bridge, and due to his massive size, he couldn't escape. He was arrested, and we only saw him next in the series finale. He had still not mended his evil ways, and when he lost his powers, he joined Ebon's gang, hoping to get them back through another exposure to the gas that they had planned. The attempt failed, and it's not known if he survived the destruction that followed. Permafrost. This mean villain had a tragic past that made many sympathetic to her actions. Permafrost went by the name Maureen, and she was a homeless child who had a troubled childhood. Her mother was sick and her stepfather cared little for them. On one occasion, he walked out on them and her mother died from her illness. Maureen was taken in by child protection agents, but she kept running away from them. She lived with many other homeless people and looked for scraps of leftovers to feed herself.
Her mother died a few years ago. Her stepfather wanted nothing to do with her.
This was when she was exposed to the gas and gained unbelievable power. She had the power of cryokinesis, or the ability to control ice and snow. She also had an incredible immunity to harsh cold conditions and took up the name Permafrost. After gaining these powers, her aim was to ruin the lives of other families, just like her own family life was ruined. She started to take out her wrath on families that seemed happy and warm in their homes. She caused a massive blackout in Dakota Hills by freezing the entire power station. Static came to the rescue and thawed it out. They had a brief fight, but Permafrost managed to escape. She then froze half them all, and everyone panicked by the turn of events. During the mayhem that she was causing, she did have a few emotional moments. On one occasion, she broke down when she saw a mother protecting her daughter, and on another occasion, she was enraged after seeing one of the child protection agents. Static found a photo of her mother and got to know all about her story. He was naturally sympathetic, and the next time she attacked, he explained to her that there were people who cared about her, including himself. He told her how he had lost his mother as well, and Permafrost calmed down. She understood that Static indeed understood her pain, and allowed herself to be brought to Reverend Anderson. She joined the homeless program at the church, and it was a heartwarming instance where a villain turned to embrace her good side.
I am now in control of every computer and digital device that exists.
Omnara. Omnara, or Karen Roberts, was one of the few villains who got to know the real identity of Static. She became an employee of Edwin Alva when she was short of proper funding. Her task was to set up a massive data collection network that would eventually spill out the real identity of Static. However, in the course of the mission, Alva Jr. was healed and Alva no longer held grudges against the hero. Karen was shut down and Alva had plans of shifting her to another project altogether. However, she was adamant that she would not work on anything else until she got funding for her own project. This got her fired from her job, but she did not halt the work that she was doing. Shortly afterwards, she found out all about Static's secret identity and learned that it was Virgil Hawkins. Instead of informing Alva, she decided to take action herself and hired Onyx and Puff to kidnap Robert Hawkins. Using him as a pawn, she blackmailed Static and made him steal Project Omni for her. It was still with Alva Industries, and Static had to steal it from the compound because Robert Hawkins was being held hostage. This was almost her entire life's work, and she now became the link between humans and computers. She had developed a virus that could access all computers, and Gear created a counter-virus to foil her plans. They had a furious face-off against a technologically advanced villain. She directed missiles towards Alva's properties, and the heroes had to take out the missiles. She even tried to run over Static and Gear with cars. Just as they were about to get hit, the counter-virus worked and Omnara was immobilized. As the police take her away, Static is relieved that nobody would know about his secret identity. Madelyn Spaulding. She was a mere student at Dakota High, who turned a new leaf once she acquired her powers following the exposure to the Bang Baby gas. She was out interviewing a homeless man for an extra credit, and the gas infected both of them. She gained powers of telepathy and mind control, and she soon found out about her powers. Madelyn was running for class president, and she had a clear edge over the opponents because of her newly acquired powers. She could make the voters vote for her, and even made one of her opponents drop out of the election. Static understands that there is something fishy, but he can do little about it. However, he finds out that his own electrical powers can block her telepathic powers. Even Madelyn had an edge over Static, because she got to know about his real identity by reading Richie's mind. She corrupted Static's entire neighborhood and the students at Dakota High by brainwashing them. She made them all attack him, and she also made her real intentions clear. Eventually, she wanted to take over the city, and then the entire world. It was almost a zombie-like raid, and Static had to stand against her and her forces. He knocked her unconscious with an electric shock, and she was imprisoned for her wrongdoings. While she was in prison, it was found out that she had lost much of her memory, including the information about the secret identity of Static. She also lost her telepathic powers, but after her release, she realised that the electric shock gave her powers of telekinesis. Madelyn now wanted revenge and helped Talon, Ebon, and Hotstreak break out from prison. However, there was some infighting between her and Ebon, and Static shocked her into submission once again.
Static.
Puff. This metahuman villainess is a wannabe bounty hunter, and she often tags along with her best friend Onyx. After the exposure to the Bang Baby gas, they were out on the streets and quit school. They would be scavenging for food in garbage dumps, and one day they came across a bounty on Rubberband Man. This could be an easy way for them to make some money and feed themselves. They decided to become professional bounty hunters and wanted to track him down. Unfortunately, Static's intervention made them fail in their mission, and Rubberband Man escaped. She was a witty fighter, and her special powers were simply incredible. She could transmute her body into gaseous vapor. She was also capable of exhaling gases from her mouth, and the kind of gas would vary depending on her food. This characteristic of Puff allowed her to travel through tiny spaces and cracks in her cloudy form. However, in this state, she was vulnerable to wind and water. She has several interactions with Static, and alongside Onyx, she has completed several missions from kidnapping to robbing people. The best part about these villains was just how colourful these characters were. Despite being crafted especially for children, they were all unique and fun to watch, and their presence made the show popular among the fans. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks!
Next time, Static, it's your turn. Ta-ta!